Hello traders and welcome back to another market update. My name is Nick, and in today's video we're going to take a look at the currency market to see what's going on and look for potential trade setups or major technical analysis points to consider going forward. So this is Euro USD. We're taking a look here on the daily chart, and what you see here is I drew this line already because we did see in fact this area of resistance starting to hold here on Euro USD, and my opinion is that this could turn into a bigger pullback here on this particular market. The reason I say that is that we are seeing this level reject very harshly on this kind of wick. You can see we did see a lot of sellers step in and push price down. We had kind of a weak retracement before ultimately rolling over. Now the next area of interest to me might be this area here. So if price can start making a move to the downside, I think we could continue heading down towards this area here. That's right around the, let's take a look at what level that is. 1.1081. That might be an area at least that I'll be watching there on Euro USD and to at least consider. So let's go ahead into GBP USD. This is our next one here. You can see we did see a major sell-off on this pair similar to Euro USD. Take a look at how we did have this major push to the upside, right? But it ultimately was rejected pretty harshly, right? And one thing that I'd like to point out about this daily candle, if we zoom in, you can see here that this daily candle, if we change the colors here on this fib, you can see that it actually closed underneath the 50% mark. You can see, so the 50% mark is right here, right? And take a look at how this candle actually closed underneath that. What that shows us is that buyers who push price up like this were not able to hold that momentum for very long, and ultimately it did in fact lead to the very next candle, which was a nice little bearish pin bar there before price rolled over very sharply here to the downside on GBP USD. Now where is GBP USD headed? Well, there's one level that I'm personally watching here. You can see this area right here, which was a previous level of resistance, right? And may actually come back for a retest here. And this might be an area for those of people who are interested in GBP buys or looking to be long on this pair. This might be an area to consider at least because this is a previous level of resistance that could hold as a supportive level. We'll see ultimately what GBP USD decides to do, but those are the levels that I'm currently watching on the pair. USD JPY here is continuing to hold the uptrend that we have been seeing, but we are kind of at a critical moment or a decisive point. This level of resistance here, this kind of zone right here where we have this kind of rejection right now, this is going to be an interesting area to watch. If price can break through this level and retest and continue, I think that there's a nice chance that this upward trend turns into something bigger. Now, if we do zoom out, you can see that the downward trend that we are in is still relatively strong. We still see this market kind of holding. So this is kind of a double whammy where if price can break through these two major levels, there might be the chance that we see a nice continuation of this uptrend, and maybe even this counter trend that we see along the bottom could turn into a bigger, longer term uptrend. So that's what I'm watching there on dollar yen. Otherwise, for now, this is still a barrier of resistance for buyers, right? So this is an area where sellers could actually hold this area, and I think that there's probably a pretty good chance that we see the rejection along this trend line, as we have two reasons for seeing that, right? We have the resistance point and as well as the trend line, right? So you have two kind of negative bearish technical zones to at least consider, and until that breaks, my bias here would be more likely bearish than bullish. XAU USD, this is our next one. You can see here on the daily chart that we do have this kind of downward trend line, and that price is very near it right now. So my bias here on gold is going to be bearish due to the fact that this level has held very nicely. But if we look longer term, my longer term outlook is definitely more bullish. I'll show you guys why. So I think on the 200-day moving average here, I think that price wants to come down to retest that 200-day, as it has not been retested for a while, and markets often like to test structure before continuing in a market direction, right? So the longer term trend has been very nicely to the upside. I think that we could see more of a pullback here to retest that 200-day before ultimately making a move higher. This is my opinion, of course, and what my bias says here is that this downward trend, right, has the potential to reject one more time sharply and push down towards this 200 period moving average. If that happens and we start to see a rise, if we get that breakout, there might be some continuation plays, maybe even back to recent structure highs. That's my opinion there on gold. Hopefully that was helpful. Let's take a look at Brent crude here. And if we take a look at the 4-hour chart, This channel that we've been watching has been going on for quite some time, and we are still hugging the top of it, right? So we have this channel on the top and the bottom, and you can see Brent crude has been channeling back and forth. And to me, there's still the chance that we see the roll back over and maybe even head back towards this bottom area of that channel, just to continue the overall pattern. Now, WTI crude looks very similar here. We can draw in the structure. This time we'll do it on the daily chart. You can see a very, whoops, wrong line. You can see the daily chart looking very, very similar, right? So you have this kind of this channeling structure here that goes back way far, right? And we're still seeing this market, for the most part, respect it. But if price can start to break out of this, if we got some meteoric rise and then we got a pullback, there might even be a chance to break out of this concept on the top. But for the time being, my bias would still be that we could see a roll back over and head back towards that structure to continue the pattern that we're seeing in the market. Euro GBP here, if we take a look at the daily chart, if we draw in this trend line, I think that if we do see this pullback, I think the pullback could come back towards this trend line. That would be my first bias as a first stopping point, at least to consider in your technical analysis there, in terms of a pullback zone, due to the fact that this trend line is a significant one, right? You have these major pivotal points that are lining this up, and so markets may be watching this trend line to see what happens next, right? So if that breaks and we get a continuation, there might be a breakout trade. But my first bias here on Euro GBP is that this would be a pullback zone where sellers may be waiting to look to get involved. That is, of course, just my analysis there when it comes to Euro GBP. Dollar Swiss is the last one of the day. You can see price did break underneath this area here, but we're also holding structure. If we look left, we have another level right here. You can see this zone or this pivotal moment in history, at least in historical pricing. You can see we did get a bounce here, right? We got a bounce here. Some resistance there. So this level might actually be an area where we see another pivot. The market here on Dollar Swiss has been very, very choppy, meaning it's been very, very back and forth. And so as price comes down a bit here, I think we could snap back and there might be even a short-term bounce. But we'll see. If this decides to continue to break, we could see the structure of this market start to change, right? If we start to see the breakdown, we could see a trend to the downside develop here on Dollar Swiss. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you got something out of today's video. We'll catch you next time.